I think our lives are driven by emotion, whether we want to admit it or not. But we make decisions. Certainly, we have facts and figures and we look at things rationally, but we do things emotionally about how they help us or they help our children and their welfare, right? How we succeed. So here's my question is how do you set up a team structure, a framework, a business process, right? That succeeds at delivering outcomes through such emotionally charged paths to that outcome. Because we don't necessarily do that, especially in business. We tend to think more rationally than we do emotionally, usually. So, how do you flip that model?
Yeah, you have to open the aperture first and foremost, right? Like, I think the biggest failure mode that a lot of organizations have is when they try to answer your question within the confines of the customer organization. So that's CS's problem. That's the CX problem. Or sometimes they put it in the UX bucket, right? Which is on the product side, but they give that solution to a team. And the way you have to solve it is you have to influence the organizational culture. So we could have the best CSM on the planet. And then if that customer has a conversation with the customer support person and they are brushed off or they are not seen or they don't think their priority is being tended to, that's a failure mode, right? If customer support and customer success are completely in alignment, and then there's a salesperson that has a follow-up call about selling renewal or upselling, and they're really aggressive, that's going to be a point of disconnect, right? So the first thing you have to understand is where are all the touch points, right, within the organization? Who talks to the customer? How do they talk to the customer? And then where can we provide tools and insights to enable them to have a more constructive dialogue? And oftentimes, because you can't necessarily change the world overnight, sometimes it's really simple. Like once things have moved to the customer success organization, if you don't have the framework or all the processes in place to do that yet, there's a very simple thing you can do. As long as your CSM is at least armed with the same philosophy and understands how to show up, then there's a simple question, right? At least for right now, if you need to jump on with the customer and it's for a high priority issue, just pull the CSM in. Let's have a pre-call. Let's do some type of dialogue. Just a way to not just make sure that the customer advocate is on, right, the conversation as well, but to actually show to everyone else how we actually show up in those moments of concern. And then obviously there's the normal process pieces where you can't just focus on the native, right? This is how to effectively drive adoption and education and understand usage and all that. But it's all key. But what questions do you ask? What data points do you look for? How do you know if you need to pull on a string? And sometimes it's even about just understanding what history said, right? If this customer was notorious about showing up on calls consistently for a year, and then in 3 calls in a row, they're just not there with an excuse, that is a screaming data point that just begs of something went wrong, right? Clearly something went awry that you need to do some outreach on.